estamos en vivo.
Muy buenos días a todos. Morning, everyone. I am very happy to welcome you this morning to this webinar. This is the third webinar that has been organized by the Ministry of Economy of Mexico in coordination with our consulate network. So just after San Francisco and New York, is now the turn of Chicago to have this important conversation. I am delighted to welcome Undersecretary Luz Maria de la Mora. I will properly introduce her, but first, I just want to share with you some comments on the importance of talking about USMCA in this moment. It is relevant because we are in a good position to correct some mistakes that we made after Nafta. And I'm talking about the importance of passing this information to the general public. It was very unknown to many of the consumers in the three countries, all the benefits that came after Nafta. So now I am particularly happy to have someone here that knows what this is about, and knows the process since NAFTA and now USMCA to talk about this. This has to be in the imagination of every consumer and every member of our communities in the three countries. The benefits for all of us were out there. Illinois is a good example of that. This is a very close trade relationship, the one that we have with the state of Illinois. And I keep repeating that Mexico trades with Illinois more than we trade with Japan. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. And on the other hand, there are many very specific products that people from this area consume every day, and they don't even know that those come from Mexico. So we need to talk about these things, not only the very specific technical aspects, but all the way, boil it down all the way to why this is important for the general public. So for that, I am really happy to welcome today Dr. Luz Maria de la Mora. As of December 1st, 2018, she is Vice Minister of Foreign Trade in the Ministry of Economy of Mexico. She has been head of the Unit of Economic Relations and International Cooperation in Mexico's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and head of the International Trade Negotiations Unit, Mexico's Ministry of Economy, as well as head of the representations of Mexico's Economy Ministry before the European Union in Brussels and before ALARI in Montevideo. She served as economic counselor at the Embassy of Mexico in Washington, D.C., where I had the privilege to share some time with her over there, both serving at the embassy. And she was part of the NAFTA negotiating team. She has been NAFTA Chapter 19 panelist and consultant with the advisory committee of the Latin American division of the World Bank. In the academic field, she has been a visiting researcher at the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington, D.C., and at the Center for U.S.-Mexico Studies of the University of California at San Diego. She has been an affiliate professor in the International Studies Division of CIDE, and is the author of a book, Apertura and Reciprocidad, Opening and Reciprocity, published in 2012. She has been a member of the Mexican Council of International Affairs, COMEXI. She led the We Connect International program in Mexico and the Mexico chapter of Vital Voices Global Partnership, promoting the development and internationalization of human businesses. She holds a bachelor's degree in international relations from El Colegio de Mexico, a master's in international political economy from Carleton University in Canada, and a PhD in political science from Yale University in the United States. She has been a Fulbright Scholar, Government of Canada Award holder, and a CONACYT Fellow. So welcome, Undersecretary Luz Maria de la Mora.
Thank you very much, Reina. It's always a pleasure to, again, of you today this webinar that we have planned in order for the business community in the Illinois area to learn more about Mexico. I think that you have a very good point when you say that we need to do more about telling people the good story, the success story that NAFTA created for Mexico and the US, how NAFTA was able to create a North American region that is competitive and that is fully integrated. But more importantly, I think that it's important to bear in mind partner, a key player in North America that can provide a competitive edge to North American industries. So if you allow me, I would like to share my screen with you so I can have this conversation with you through a presentation to make it easier. And if you could just please let me know if this is, if you can see this, my screen correctly, and then we can start. Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so
It's working
much.
perfectly.
Great. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be in here with you today. For me, it's a great opportunity and a great honor to be able to share our view regarding USMCA today with all of you in Illinois. We know that we are close, and in this way, even though we have to maintain our physical distance, the internet technology allows us to be close. So this is fantastic, and this is a great opportunity for us at the Ministry of Economy to be here with you today. Okay, now let me try. Okay, see. So I would like to briefly where we are today, the last day that Nafta is in place after 26 and a half years. And what does this mean for us in terms of the new USMCA? And in this respect, I would like to tell you briefly, what does USMCA mean? What are the continuities with respect to Nafta, and where are the differences or the new areas in the new USMCA? I would like to start by saying that Nafta and USMCA both hold the great asset of certainty. And I think that this is a very important word today, in which we are living in a situation of great uncertainty caused by COVID-19, but also caused by the tensions in the relationship between the US and China, the US and the EU, and many key trading partners that the US has throughout the world. So these kind of tensions have actually had a very important impact, a negative impact in terms of trade flows, in terms of investments, in terms of the operations of value chains. And what USMCA brings to the table and brings to the private sector is the fact that we have a clear set of rules that allows the three countries to maintain free trade and to preserve North American integration. And I think that that's key for all of us who participate in one way or another in this very deep trade relationship, in this very deep productive integration. So in this slide, what you see is the contents of our 34 chapters. The boxes that are colored in red are disciplines that were already contained in the Nafta and that were updated, adjusted, or modified to reflect the realities of the 21st century economy. We are living in an economy where intra-trade and intra-firm trade is the name of the game in international trade. Also, we need to make sure that global value chains operate in the most effective and competitive way. So these disciplines were adjusted, and some new disciplines, the ones that are in the green boxes, are the new provisions in USMCA that not only intend to reflect the realities of the 21st century, for example, including digital trade, trade facilitation, sectoral annexes, but also it aims at including those provisions that will make our integration more inclusive, more progressive, and to make sure that all of the sectors, the different sectors that participate in the North American economy are equally benefited. That's why we included provisions in the labor sector, in the environmental policy area, also regarding competitiveness, SMEs, and good regulatory practices. So these 34 chapters that you see here is what tomorrow we are going to have in effect. Now, where are those achievements? And I think that bearing in mind the future, where this USMCA is going to take the region, we have identified 4 areas, which are not exhaustive. They are not the only ones, but we want to make sure that you are aware about the fact that in the USMCA, the different chapters that we have throughout the new agreement have a clear intention. For example, USMCA will maintain regional competitiveness because we will be able to maintain preferential access, as we already have under NAFTA. We have included measures regarding sanitary and phytosanitary measures, technical barriers to trade, regulatory coherence, which is very important for companies to make sure that regulations do not become an unnecessary obstacle to trade. As I was mentioning, USMCA deepens our integration and deepens this relationship among the three countries in North America, because now we have provisions that not only deal with trading in goods and services and investment, we have provisions that also deal with areas related to labor protection rights, environmental protection laws, the recognition of the need to have more equal participation between men and women in the economy and in the business community, the need to have more provisions that allow SMEs to participate either directly or indirectly in the regional value chain. And I think that also very important the fact that we have provisions to fight corruption in the region at the same level as we have provisions to promote trade and investment. And we know that fighting corruption is the best way to create the best business environment in North America. And that will be an asset for the three countries. A third area of importance, we think, is the fact that in USMCA, we have dispute settlement mechanisms that are binding. And this is not minor, because this provides the economic actors in the region with the kind of certainty that the rules that are incorporated in the USMCA will be respected by the three countries, because the three countries decided to commit to USMCA in the sense that we agreed to obey some rules and to abide by those rules. And when any one of the three countries decide not to abide by them, then we have mechanisms to solve state-to-state disputes, investor-state disputes, and trade remedy laws disputes. So we think that at this time, in the context of the World Trade Organization and the weakness of the appellate body, the fact that USMCA can offer this kind of mechanisms to producers, investors, exporters is not a minor feat. And that is a plus for USMCA. And looking into the 21st century, we are already in the 21st century, but NAFTA and our trade and integration framework, the rule book for North America in terms of trade and investment, was not up to date. So USMCA brings us to this economy of the 21st century and offers us the tools to get into the development of this new economy, which is already proving under the pandemic that information technology, telecommunications, the internet, the digital economy can help us to keep the economy going in very trying moments. So the provisions related to intellectual property, digital trade, financial services, e-commerce are those contained in USMCA that will allow the region not only to develop our traditional trade in goods and products, but also in the digital economy. And we think that that is also an asset, because not many regions in the world can boast these kinds of regulations. So why North America? Why is it that we're looking into North America as a special region? And I want to tell the story, the success story of integration after 25 years. USMCA will come into effect in a very different situation than what we had in 1994 when NAFTA became effective. And why? Because after 26 and a half years, today, we are main trading partners among the three of us. Nafta created a North American competitive region with a population that is close to 500 million potential consumers. We represent around 6.5% of the world population. Our GDP together represents $26 trillion, and that makes us together the second largest economy in the world. So together we're stronger. We have also, in 2018, we represented the #1 destination for foreign direct investment in the world, representing more than 23% of total FDI around the world. And in terms of trade, as a bloc, as a North American bloc, we are the second largest global exporter, and we represent close to 16% of global trade with $6 trillion. When we look at our intra-trade, we see that we have $1.2 trillion in trade, which is 20% of the region's total trade in 2019. USMCA will become effective also in a context where Mexico, the US, and Canada invest in each other's countries. In the case of Mexico specifically, Nafta was a trigger for investment from the US and from Canada to come into Mexico. As a result of that, today, Mexico more than $589 billion between 1999 and March 2020. And half of that foreign direct investment which we have received comes from the US, $277 billion, in the manufacturing sector, services sector, telecommunications, transportation, etc. The US today is our most important investor in Mexico. And Canada is also a success story. Canada is today our third largest source of foreign direct investment, with $41 billion in terms of investment. And this investment, which was made possible as a result of the opening that Nafta allowed, has resulted in this productive integration that we have been able to create. Also, in terms of trade, Nafta created trade where we did not have. And this is the graph that I want to show to, so that you can see the kind of dynamism that that grew 7.5%, while our exports grew more than 8.5%. And I think that it also, that not only the level of integration that was possible as a result of the elimination of tariffs, but this was also driven by the fact that Mexico became a key site for investment from the US and from Canada. And I also want to show here that the fact that this continuous growth in terms of trade not only shows the export platform that Mexico became for the region, but also that we procure from North America. We also have increased our imports from the North American region, from the US and from Canada, which today makes Mexico the US top trading partner. This, when Nafta became effective, Mexico's participation or share in the US market was around 7%. Today, Mexico is close to 15%. Mexico is the most important trading partner of the US. We know that this has also been a partial result of the conflicts between China and the US, where China has actually reduced its participation in the US market from a peak point of 21% at some point a few years ago to today's 13.5% in the market. So what we see here is that as a result of Nafta and as a result of this productive integration in North America, Mexico, the US, and Canada are key trading partners. For Mexico, the US has always been its most important trading partner and the destination for 80% of our exports, while Canada is also an untold story. Canada and Mexico had basically very little trade before 1994. Our trade annually was around $2 billion. After 26 and a half years, this trade, according to Mexican data, is close to $25 billion. According to Canadian data, it is closer to $35 billion. We know that this difference in terms of the figures that we have may be reflecting the fact that part of our trade goes through the US and it's unaccounted for. However, what is important to say here is that if it's 25 or 35, it's a growing trade, it's a growing relationship, but also it shows that this integration has actually increased the bridges, the links, the connections that we have to produce together for the world. And the agricultural sector has also been an untold story. And I think it's important to keep this in mind because before USMCA, there were a lot of misgivings about what would be the effects of the opening in the agricultural sector for the three countries. And I think that today, after 26 and a half years, USMCA will take over Nafta in a very special position with respect to agricultural trade and agricultural export. In 2019, the US and Mexico traded more than $47.5 billion. This is a huge amount given the numbers that we had before the implementation of Nafta that were probably not even a tenth of what we're saying here. So Mexico today buys from the US $19 billion and sells to the US $28 billion. And this is also a reflection of the kind of complementarities that we have been able to develop. Together, we're able to offer our consumers a better quality and a better and a more competitive offer where we see what people can have at the table. And that is not minor because Mexico provides fresh fruits and vegetables that complement, very importantly, a very healthy diet to the US consumer and to the Canadian consumer. So Mexico is a very important export market for agricultural products from the US. And when we break down the success story of Nafta and the point of departure from USMCA, we see that 29 states in the United States have Mexico as the first, second, or third largest export market. So that also reflects the kind of relationship that USMCA will take over. And it also reflects the fact that we already have trade taking place and we need to take care of it so that we can make this trade be more productive. Now, let me show you in the case specifically of Mexico and Illinois. For Illinois, Mexico is the second export market. Exports to Mexico account for 15.5% of its total export, while imports account for 7.8% of total imports. Now, when we see the level of integration in our two economies, we see that we trade in very similar products and within the same industries. And that is the example, for just to name a few, of the automotive sector, where we export auto parts and we buy vehicles. We also have computers, where we sell computers and we buy some parts from computers, where we buy and televisions, or where we sell some other kinds of telephones and cell phones in the same industry. So we are specializing within the same sectors: electronics, industrial machinery, automobiles. And in the specific case of Illinois, this is also the case. Illinois trade with Mexico accounts for $22.1 billion in 2019. And this trade reflects the kind of global supply chains that we have been able to build in the electronics sector, the industrial machinery sector, and the automotive sector. So these are only a few of the products that we are seeing traded today, but also, very importantly, agricultural products. Beer on the Mexican side, corn on the so why Mexico? Why Mexico is important in this North American equation, and why Mexico is a good bet for any company in Illinois in the context of the new USMCA and in the context of the restructuring of global value chains. And let me offer you a few remarks on why we think that you should look at Mexico to deepen the trade relationship that Illinois has with Mexico, but also to see Mexico as an alternative to third regions that are already experiencing decoupling and restructuring as a result of different events like the pandemic or even the trade tensions between the US and China. Well, I would like to start by saying that Mexico ranks among the world's top emerging markets with a stable and open economy. President López Obrador has stated once and again that Mexico is a firm supporter of free trade, of global markets, and of having rules that allow trade to flow unimpeded. Mexico has a network of 13 free trade countries that offers preferential access to more than 1.3 billion potential consumer market in economies that represent more than 60% of the world's GDP. We are part of the CPTPP, the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement that links us to the Asia Pacific. We have an agreement with the European Union, as you know. We recently finished the modernization of that agreement also to reflect the realities of the 21st century. We have free trade agreements with Israel and with many countries in Latin America, all of Central America. We are part of the Pacific Alliance, and we are a firm supporter of WTO, APEC, G20, and all of the initiatives throughout the world that intend to maintain an open international trading system that is based on rules, because we know the importance of trade for the global economy, but also for Mexico. We also boast a strong, innovative, and diversified industrial platform in a wide range of industry. Mexico really is one of the few countries in the world that has this very strong export platform that contains products that have different levels of technology integrated. We have plants in Mexico that are fully automated and companies that develop research and development in Mexico. We have a human resource pool with young workers and a highly trained workforce. Our population averages 27 years old, and we have a market close to 130 million potential consumers. President López Obrador has paid a lot of attention to the fact that income for the lower labor class should be improved. In fact, there's already been twice an increase of the minimum wage in Mexico, 50% at the beginning, increase of close to 15%. So that at some point we were worried that it would imply and it would have an impact on inflation, but it has not been the case. And we know that we are coming from a very low base, but President López Obrador is committed to creating that middle class in Mexico that can have a better income to be able to have better possibilities of having a better purchasing power. And last but not least, we are an economy that shows high productivity and competitiveness combined that makes Mexico an open and ideal trading partner and an attractive place for companies to invest. And today we know that any firm, any company that is trying to develop a project for North America, for the US market specifically, will always consider Mexico in its business strategy. Mexico is an essential part of any company doing business in North America because Mexico offers any company a competitive edge for a successful operation in North America. So when I was mentioning that Mexico has a strong and innovative industrial platform, I refer to the fact that Mexico ranks 19th among the most complex countries according to the Atlas of Economic Complexity. And that tells you the fact that Mexico has the capacity to attract new projects, new industries, new sectors, and it can adapt to welcome those investments and allow those investments to flourish in Mexico. 6.2% of the world's total automotive exports are done by Mexico, and in the electronic sector, we represent 3.8% of total world's exports. Just a few remarks, Mexico before and after Nafta, and where we are today when USMCA takes place tomorrow. Mexico's trade with the world before Nafta reached $117 billion. Last year, in 2019, it was $116 billion. Products exported, the number was 4,151. We exporting to 235 industrial products. And in terms of trade partners, we had 142 through our different participation in WTO, APEC, free trade agreements, etc. And today we trade with 223 economies or countries. Now, Mexico also leads in manufacturing production. Mexico is today the 6th largest world producer of vehicles, and it's the 4th exporter worldwide in this industry. We are the 6th largest supplier of aircraft parts to the US, the 6th largest exporter of IT products and services. We are the 7th largest exporter worldwide when we consider the European Union as one actor. We are the 13th largest recipient of foreign direct investment in the world and the 2nd in Latin America, only after Brazil. And we are the 8th largest exporter of food products. Mexico also has a solid infrastructure and logistics network. According to the World Economic Forum, Mexico ranks among the top 30% countries with the best transport infrastructure, which is essential to maintaining and holding this productive integration in North America. We have 172,000 kilometers of roads, where 62.4% of Mexico's total exports move. You know that most of our trade between Mexico and the US is done through land transportation, trucks. So it is essential that we keep an efficient and effective road system. We also have 26,000 kilometers of railway tracks that move 13% of Mexico's total exports. We have 117 ports that move close to 20% of Mexico's total exports. We have world-class ports in Veracruz, Altamira in the Gulf of Mexico, and also Lázaro Cárdenas, Mazatlán, Manzanillo in the Pacific area. And we have 76 airports, 64 are international and 12 are national, moving 4.3% of Mexico's total exports. Mexico also offers competitive costs for companies doing business in Mexico. We boast low shipping costs. From Mexico to the US, the cost is $9 per square meter compared to China, which is $140 per square meter. In terms of labor costs, we also are more competitive than China. Mexico's hourly labor cost is $4.8 compared to China, which is $6.5. As I mentioned, we are interested in reducing the income gap in Mexico, but we know that that will be done mainly by increasing productivity, by productivity gains. And Mexico also offers an IMEX program or maquiladora that offers tax benefits to companies that import inputs or any parts, components, machinery from the world to be able to support its export platform. Now, where are USMCA opportunities? Mexico offers this very competitive, productive base that will help it will help companies to take advantage of some of the opportunities that are incorporated in USMCA. I will only mention a few because I know that we don't have that much time, but just to bring them to your attention. With respect to the auto sector, the regime of origin is more restrictive than what restrictions open new opportunities for supplying from Mexico. These stricter rules of origin will allow, for example, to have more investment in the steel industry because 70% of steel needs to be originating from North America. And as of year 7, that rule of origin will be even more strict, which means that it will have to be melted and poured in the region. So that opens for opportunities. And it also opens opportunities for more local sourcing to shorten the value chains in the auto sector, both as a result of the pandemic, but also as a result of the USMCA provisions. And we know that in Mexico, we have the industrial capacity and the industrial network to be able to accommodate to these new needs. We have an opportunity here to strengthen our tier 1, 2, and 3 level producers in order to strengthen the North American production chain in the auto sector. We also have new opportunities for more inclusive trade where we will have more SMEs participating. And I know that a kind of relationship that could be developed between or among SMEs in North America will definitely boost opportunities through digital economy and e-commerce. We will be working with the US on a competitiveness agenda that will look at how we can make the best of the labor, environment, and anti-corruption provisions while also guaranteeing that more sectors, regions, and companies are incorporated. We see USMCA as a key for the economic recovery of the 3 countries. The 3 countries are going through very difficult moments in terms of the pandemic itself, the health emergency, but also the demand and supply shock that the 3 of us have recently gone through or are living through, given the fact that we need to close the economy, we need to confine ourselves, we need to isolate ourselves to be able to address this health problem, but at the same time that is creating very harsh hit on the economy. So we know that USMCA will allow us to strengthen the productive integration of North America. It will also allow us to incorporate more value added in the region as we build more resilient value chains. And it will also allow us to bring investments from outside the region to make to strengthen the value chain in North America. And I would also like to mention an issue of how we are facing with COVID-19. This issue has definitely been a challenge for the 3 of us to the extent that we were really not prepared for a pandemic like the one that we are living right now. But I think it's important to bear in mind that we have coordinated the 3 governments to address this situation in the best possible way. We have closed the border for non-essential travel, but Mexico has not closed its borders to anybody. It has not closed transportation. And I think that it's important to bear in mind that all of the situation has been addressed through proper diplomatic channels, and also from the Ministry of Economy, our Secretary, Graciela Marquez. She has been in constant communication with her counterparts in the US, the Department of Commerce, the USTR, in Canada also. And the aim for us has been to address those health issues and also those productive issues in the best possible way, trying to find the best balance. So we know that the implementation of USMCA will definitely be a very positive and very good instrument to allow us in Mexico and in the region to be able to cope with the pandemic, to be able to cope with the recession, the growing unemployment, in such a way that we can turn this situation around and continue our history of success of integration, because we already have a very solid base. Let's take the solid base and let's make the best out of the USMCA. Thank you very much. And if there are any questions, I will be happy to take them. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, I was muted, sorry. Thank you, Vice Minister de la Mora, for your presentation. Just to let you know that on July 1st, the Ministry of Economy of Mexico will make available to all companies, businessmen, and businesswomen the USMCA Trade Assistance Center. This center is a digital platform created to provide commercial, legal, and technical information about the USMCA. And also the purpose is to highlight the business opportunities and the trade benefits that the modernization of the agreement offers to the businessman community and the small and medium-sized enterprises of North America. I would like to invite you to use the platform and be a frequent user of our USMCA Export Assistance Center. All your comments and questions and requests are welcome, and we will be happy to assist you. Now we can move forward with the agenda and start with a Q&A session. We received dozens of questions. Thank you for your interest and for sending your questions in advance. Due to the time we have available, it is difficult to answer all of them. Nevertheless, we will send a written response to each one of them by the same email that we received them. So the first question to Vice Minister de la Mora: do you expect any changes in the issuance of TN visas that existed under Nafta?
Thank you, Gerardo, and thank you for all of those who are sending questions. We'll try to address them all to the extent that we can. With respect to the TN visas, Nafta provided for the temporary entry requirements for non-immigrants that allows qualified Mexican citizens to apply for a temporary visa into the US. These benefits remain in the USMCA. So that, I think, it's important. It's a continuity with respect to Nafta, and it recognizes the kind of relationship that we have in this respect. Now, let me tell you also that a working group was established in the USMCA, and that includes immigration authorities who will meet at least once a year, and this group will be responsible for considering the development of measures that will further facilitate, we hope, the temporary entry of business persons, including people with TN visas on a reciprocal basis, and the waiving of labor certification tests or procedures of similar effects for spouses of business persons who have been granted temporary entry for more than 1 year under sections B, C, or D of the annex on temporary entry for business persons. I think that the pandemic has also put in place, or has made it very evident, the fact that labor markets somehow are already integrated. Mexicans that participate, for example, in the services sector, in the agricultural sector, have been essential to maintain the activity of the economy. So I think that this pandemic has also brought to our attention the kind of participation that Mexico and Mexicans are already providing in the US economy, and the kind of strong relationship that we both have in this area. Thank you, Gerardo.
Thank you, Vice Minister de la Mora. The second question we have is, what do companies need to do to support and grant duty-free treatment?
Well, companies that are seeking preferential treatment under the USMCA need to comply first with the origin requirements. Origin requirements are established in Chapter 4 of USMCA. We have the USMCA text available in our website, but also I know that that's in the USTR and the US Department of Commerce website. So the company needs to make sure that this complies with the rule of origin. Once the rule of origin is complied with, then you can request preferential treatment, and companies seeking this preferential treatment will need to have a certification of origin. As I mentioned during the presentation, the certification of origin is self-certification. You don't have to request this certification from any authority in the US. It is very easy to do. You need to identify in this certification, which you can do using your invoice or your bill of lading or whatever commercial document you are going to be using for your export. And this certification needs to contain at least 9 elements. Those elements, you can find them in Chapter 5, Annex 5A, which are the last 2 pages of Chapter 5. They specify very clearly what are the 9 items that need to be detailed in this certification. For example, information regarding the exporter information, the producer information, the importer information, the description of the tariff classification, the origin criteria that you are using in order to be able to request that rule of origin. So it is a very straightforward process. It's a very easy process, but it is also very important that any exporter or producer knows exactly what are the new rules of origin that they will have to comply with, that they make sure that they comply with them, and that they can use this certification. Now, let me tell you something that is important today, by the way. Today is the last day that Nafta is in place. So as of tomorrow, we will only accept USMCA certificates of origin. Nafta certificates of origin will have no validity. They will not be recognized, and no exporter will be able to claim a preference under the Nafta certificate or under the Nafta or using Nafta's rules of origin. So please be very careful. If you are going to export to the US or to Canada or import from the US or Canada, make sure that all of you have a USMCA certificate of origin, and that certificate of origin is based on the rules of origin of the new USMCA. Now, in case you carry out a commercial operation that does not have with it the certification of the USMCA, there is this flexibility during the first year in which companies that comply with the rule of origin of the USMCA but did not have the certificate of origin can request the refund of duties paid in this case. So that is important for you to know. It is a very practical issue, but at the same time, we don't want you to be taken by surprise by these new rules. So please take that into account. USMCA is the only agreement that will be in effect and valid for trade in North America under preferential conditions starting July 1st. NAFTA is over on June 30th. Thank you.
Thank you for this clarification, Vice Minister. Very important for trade operations starting tomorrow. The next question, what are the possibilities of expanding trade between the 3 nations in the light of COVID-19 and the economic crisis ahead?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that question. I think that it's extremely important today when we are living this health emergency, but at the same time, these trade tensions. I think that USMCA brings us the opportunity of restructuring global value chains. This is something that was already taking place even before the pandemic took place, but the pandemic brought into our attention the vulnerabilities of some of the regional value chains. To the extent that we have fragmented this production throughout several regions for competitive reasons. And I am not saying that global value chains will disappear. That's not the case. And that's not, I think, the intention of anybody at the end of the day. But what I'm saying is that we can build more resilient value chains in North America, supported with USMCA. And let me offer you an example. In the case of medical devices, Mexico is among the top 10 producers of medical devices, pharmaceutical products, different kinds of PPE. Mexico is very well suited to strengthen the supply chain in the region. And that has to be done by increasing investments, by attracting more companies into that sector. USMCA provides for those rules that will allow companies to consider Mexico seriously in its operations to be able to maintain the competitiveness of North America. So I invite all of you to consider your operations and to in North America, and to see Mexico as a key ally and a strategic partner. We at the Ministry of Economy work together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That's why we're together here with Consul Reina Torres. And we are here to facilitate your operations in Mexico and to make sure that your operations are successful in the region. Thank you.
Vice Minister de la Mora, we still have time available for a couple of questions. How will USMCA entry into force help small, medium-sized enterprises incorporate into the regional supply chains?
I think that supply chains today show, on one hand, the kind of globalization that we have been able to accomplish. Globalization requires a lot of logistics. It requires also that logistics operate efficiently and effectively. It also requires that we know very well the kind of supplier that we will be able to rely on. And under the new conditions of the pandemic and what comes in the future, because we really don't know exactly what to expect in the future. We know that in the post-COVID-19 world, there will be issues that we will have to take care more properly. For example, how do we make sure that safety is incorporated in those regional value chains, in those global value chains? How to make sure that those value chains are protected not only from health threats, but also are protected from the fact that distance, logistics, transportation may be somehow disrupted. So in this restructuring of global value chains, I think that we need to look also at what does a country offer. And in Mexico specifically, what we offer is an already competitive industrial platform, an industrial network of companies that have been able to establish in Mexico, to flourish in Mexico, and to develop a number of sectors that go beyond the traditional ones and that have incorporated a lot of innovation. And I think that in the 21st century, it's not only about production, it is also about how do we support that production in an innovative way, and also taking into consideration the fact that we are going through the Industrial Revolution 4.0 that is here to stay, and that we need to adapt our human capital, our human resources, to make sure that they can participate. And that is something that we are already doing in Mexico, and we are working, and we will be working with our partners in the US and Canada to make sure that in the competitiveness agenda, that will be at the center of our work in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last question is, when are the final texts of the uniform regulations of USMCA going to be published in Spanish?
That's a very good question. Well, we are in the process of translating. We are very close to having that done, so it will be done in a couple of days, we hope. Difficulties with respect to the uniform regulations had to do with the fact that this is a very complex technical text. The negotiation took place in English. We only finished this negotiation on June 3rd. We published them in Spanish in Mexico, just for companies and those who will be using them to know exactly what we're talking about. The translation into into Spanish and French has to be agreed by the 3 countries. We are very close to getting this done, and we hope to get this in place in the next few days. I don't want to give you the exact date, but it will not take long. We know that this is a very important concern, is a key concern for many industries. We are aware about it. So stay tuned, and we will keep you posted on the specific date in which they will be published. It will be soon. Thank you.
Luz María de la Mora and General Consul Reina Torres for your presentation. We hope that this webinar has been productive and useful for you to take advantage of the benefits of USMCA and do business with Mexico. We want to thank you all for your participation. If you have any further question, comment, or request, please contact us. We will be happy to assist you. And maybe Consul Reina Torres would like to have a final remark.
Thank you so much, Gerardo. I just wanted to reiterate the message that Vice Minister de la Mora mentioned a few minutes ago. We are here to serve also the business community. We work very closely with the Minister of Economy. Gerardo, it's a great asset over there in Washington, D.C. And I want to make sure that everybody that is watching us, that they know that we have the doors open here at the Consulate. We have an economic area that will be very happy to work with you to keep promoting businesses between our 2 countries. And now within the context of USMCA as of tomorrow, with the 3 countries in this new era of our integration. So thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity to the Ministry of Economy. Thank you, Undersecretary de la Mora and Gerardo.
Thank you, Reina. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.